What's up, you wild tigers? Welcome to another game design show. I'm your host, KB, and this week we're going to talk about the lens of functional space. Now, this one was a hard one to wrap my head around because I thought it meant something totally different, as in the amount of player experiences in this space. Now, what really functional space means is what is the space being taken in this game world. Now, let's go into examples so we can fully understand what exactly that means. So, we have to ask three questions. Is this a continuous space or a discrete space? Okay, what are the boundaries of this world? How many dimensions are there? What is a dimension? Is it a 2D dimension? Is it a 3D dimension? Is it a 4D dimension? Is it beyond that? Is it something totally new? Exactly. You need to figure out, is it going to be continuous in a 3D dimension, being like a soccer field or a pool table where the ball can go up, and it's also happening within this 2D field. But the second the ball can go up, it's 3D. Tic-tac-toe is 2D because it only happens within the 9-dimension space, or the 2D space within 9 little small boxes in a 3x3 grid. Doesn't matter where you put the X inside one of these boxes, all that matters is you put it in that box. It means something. So while we discover what is functional space, you can also think about, hey, what part of games have space and what don't? Well, to be honest, if we can go deeper into this, all games have a space. You can even do the game 21 questions and you ask yourself, well, how is that even has space? It's a zero-dimension game. It's happening within the mind. But you can say that within the mind, you have the answer, you have the question, and then you have the mind. The between that is like, what is the guess gonna be? So, for instance, we can let's make that even more clear. We got the mind of the questioner, the mind of the answerer, and then the middle is the space of the conversation. You can even have nested type of loops, but nested spaces, because you can have, for instance, an RPG. You have the world space. Then you can go within a cave, and the cave has a space within its own. And sometimes it's not geographically, makes sense. It's not right, but again, most people don't understand the visual understanding of that fact that maybe this room is too big, but because it's inside, we don't worry about the outside world. So these are all different ways to explain spaces. Now, the question is, why is this important? Well, we have to understand that in game design, there is the theoretical, the stuff that we are always talking about, like the player experience and the feelings and the emotions that it gives to the players. And then we discuss, like, oh, this is how we have to do holographic design, or this is how we have to do judgment, or the needs, or this is how we have to think about the way we structure the psychology of how this game is going to make people feel in these certain moments. But now we're trying to get into the nuts and bolts and try to worry about more about game mechanics. So with this lens, it's one of the first of 6 that discuss how we can very well manage and create a system of a game that will provide the players with different mechanics and make them feel like they're playing a fun game world. Now, the important thing to think about is that game design isn't a mathematical equation where you put in this and you get that. It's more like, this might work for what game you're trying to make, but this might not work for someone else. And you have to decide what it is you want to apply for your game. Now, this space isn't a very easily understandable idea at first. You're like, well, why does that matter? Well, it's because of the rules you have to apply to your game. So if a game can move only 2 dimensions, then it can't go up. For instance, like soccer, it's like, well, if soccer was 2 dimensions, then if it went above the ground, it's against the rules. It's not. Those are things that you have to watch out for. Now, like all of us, or at least I am learning these game design mechanics. So this is very important to me because I assumed it was that is if you go out there into the world, the moments between each space is moments between this space is exactly what functional space is. But I think this is a tangent to this lens, which is we'll talk about it later, but I think it has to do with what is happening within the space in the game world. Are you having fun? Is there something to do here, and is there something to do 30 seconds later? Is there always something for me to engage with, or is the world completely like open world but nothing to do inside of it? And these are questions you're gonna have to ask. I think the idea for this functional space is to fully understand where is the world, how does the world work, is it continuous, is it discrete, is there subclasses, is it nested spaces, is this world in a 2D or 3D dimension? Those are things you just have to ask so you can construct this world, this game, this board game, this video, whatever game it is. It could even be a game within the mind, like 21 Questions. So this is the beginning of us learning how to build and craft a game, the nuts and bolts. So that to me is what functional space is. How can we use the space and functionally build it up so that it can create the game we want it to make? So guys, that is it. For your challenge this week, I want you to pick a board game and decide what is the space of that game. There's a lot of board games I love, like Sequence. How does that game use space? And it does it pretty. I love that game. It does it pretty well. Charmeleon is another cool game. You must play that game and understand where exactly is this space and how does it work. So pick a game, board game, any game, and just decide how does this game use functional space. As always, guys, keep on designing, and you are a game designer.